So what are some of the things that you guys are looking for in the way of how would that spike up for say fantasy travel or even spike up itself? You're looking for third-party developers. What are some of the things that?
Well, we're not going to be approving by product. That's the first thing I want to put out there.
Even so,
if
what would you like to see as?
Okay, well, we want to see good product. Seriously, no. It really, I don't want to tell a publisher, please make adventures, or please make species guides, or I want that publisher to make what they make well. If a company comes to us and says, I think I'm the National Geographic of fantasy RPGs, you should make settings, my friend. Go, have fun. Make maps. Do whatever it is that you're good with. We feel Fantasycraft is a complete game. We could walk away from Fantasycraft right now, and we would be happy that it could live on in perpetuity.
We don't want to.
No. The only thing I think that we actually omitted intentionally, other than the settings, from Fantasycraft was, we were talking earlier to someone about this, was the dramatic conflicts. And those we have plans for separately. And when they make an appearance, they're going to be, they will be similar to what you saw before, and there will be actually an option to play that is very similar, if not almost identical to what you saw before, but but mastercrafted. But we have other plans for them as well. That program, if we do it the way that we hope we will, is going to be much more expanded, and I think it'll be a lot more fun as a result. I'm kind of hoping the dramatic conflicts will end up like a party game, and that statement will make more sense when you see what we want to make, if we manage to make it. But outside that, everything's in the book. And that's great, because it means that if somebody wants to make monsters, all the rules are there. If somebody wants to make adventures, all the rules are there. If somebody wants to make settings, we've built everything they need already. All they have to do is use that as a launching pad. So really, honestly, whatever people want to do. We don't want to tell people specifically what products to make. So.
Right.
Well, I guess it wasn't so much of a device, but a whole aside from just being
I don't really have any.
stuff.
I mean,
Okay,
specific things. I'd say
It's-
spy stuff is a pretty safe thing to make.
For Fantasycraft?
Well, for powered by
Sure.
products in general. Because spycraft, people want spy stuff, and
Sure.
and modern day stuff, and there's a lot out there in the modern that.
I'll turn it back on you.
Yeah.
What do you guys want to see?
Right.
Because that's what's important.
Nothing.
We're done.
Urban fantasy.
Urban fantasy. Okay. Right.
Culturally, it's getting more and more acceptable to be part of I don't want to call it geekation, but what we traditionally used to have in RPGs is becoming more and more culturally acceptable.
Right.
Permeating actually in the culture.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
I know you said you were going to put off Hall of Silence until next year because we were still looking at the Spellcraft ready to go. And,
Spellbound. Yeah.
Spellbound,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And which is fine, but I mean, when I read the write-up on Hall of Silence, I drooled. I thought that was just so cool.
Right.
And Valid Science is still coming in. Actually, I would say it's about 80%
It's
ready.
really, it's
Yeah.
really well along its way. It's
Yeah.
getting the rest of Spellbound together and out.
And actually, we have the rest of Spellbound is all but assigned. We've talked with a freelancer about wrapping that up.
Who's been doing work on the line already?
Yeah, so he's established as really good with that, with building spells for Spycraft. So I think once we get back, it's just gonna be a matter of sitting down with him and saying, look, here's what we absolutely want, and here's some deadlines, and let's knock that out. And yeah, you'll see Valve Silence next year. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, yeah. Good question. And it's mutated a bit since then. Yeah, that's always what happens. And that's the reason, oh, by the way, going back to the previous question, that's exactly the reason that I don't want to tell people what we want to make. This process is very organic. And I feel that when we announce things too far out, or we lock ourselves into things too far out, we tend to create a restrictive environment that doesn't allow us to make the best possible game. Fantasycraft wouldn't exist in its cool, unfettered position and form right now if we had at any point decided we were we were going to make this game exactly the way we started.
Yeah, if we had stuck to the plan, then
yeah,
Fantasycraft wouldn't be like this.
It'd be a totally different game.
Yeah.
So yeah. To answer with the settings, Alex has 2.
Right. I've written Cloak and Dagger and Epic, and so those
are
are
written in first draft.
Right. Yeah. So they just need some revision and stuff because obviously Fantasycraft has grown as we've gone along.
We should say they're written in first draft as they would have appeared in Fantasycraft. One of the things that might happen is they may get expanded for the final.
Right, just depending on the size of the final product and things like that. So yeah, there's Epic, which is the primitive setting. Sort of all of our settings also span the eras that we discuss in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually examples at different technology levels, different progression levels, and cultures and stuff like that. So Epic is the primitive setting. It's I love Conan. It's sword and sorcery. I love Conan. I love Frank Frazetta. I also love Native American mythology, Aztec stuff, and so it's all squished together. So it's barbarians. It's barbarians versus worse barbarians in essentially a disintegrating world. So it's kind of sad, and it's pretty cool. It's about raw heroism. It's I have an obsidian knife and bulging biceps, and that's what I'm gonna get by with, and a loincloth, of course. So anyway, yeah, that's Epic, and it was a lot of fun to put together, and especially as Fantasycraft came along and supports it so well. Cloak and Dagger is one that was that's gonna have it's gonna cover espionage in a fantasy world. It is essentially, I mentioned this earlier, it's a Greco-Roman themed setting. It is not. We're not talking about Mars and Julius Caesar and all that crap, but it's actually kind of cool. But but it is it's sort of this meta setting that blends those themes together, and it's very distinctive in that way. But it's essentially it's a world. The known world has been split up by heroes who defeated this giant horde that was going to overrun and destroy civilization. So if you've seen 300 or something like that, imagine these guys. These guys are the guys who pushed back the Persian invasion and thus saved civilization. And so they got this empire. They were so excited, and the kings were like, "We'll give you anything you want, gold or Vestal virgins or what have you." And they're like, "How about you put us in charge? Because you guys didn't see this coming, and we kicked ass." And so they basically took the kingdom, split it up into these nations. There's 12 heroes, that's right. Split it up and made these nation states, all of which sort of correspond to a historical analog. So you have sort of a Hellenistic culture, and you have sort of an Egyptian culture, and you have your sort of a Spartan culture, and you have your Athenian culture, and nations, and Etruscans, and so on and so forth. And so these nations go on. They're supposed to have sort of a rotating seat of power, and then eventually it starts to break down. There are sort of some modern political analogs that are blended into this about how